You're used to thinking you know your limits. You've been told you're the pinnacle of creation, a biological machine that represents the peak of evolution. But somewhere deep inside, in those quiet moments when you look into the mirror and notice a spark of something greater in your eyes, you sense that something doesn't add up. You've been lied to your entire life. You've been fed one of the sweetest and most comforting illusions of modern science. You've probably heard the famous number, 10%. The myth that humans use only 10% of their brain has become a cultural icon. It sounds reassuring. It gives us permission to stay comfortable while still dreaming about hidden potential. We think, if I just push harder, maybe I can unlock another 5, 10, even 15% and become a genius. Hollywood movies repeat it. Personal development gurus sell it. Even some biology teachers still pass it along because keeping up with modern neuroscience isn't easy. But the truth we're about to explore today doesn't just challenge this myth, it completely destroys it. And the real answer is far more unsettling. We're not here to repeat textbook explanations. We're here to break the code. To prepare this investigation, we used the Logos 7 analytical system. This isn't just another neural network trained on text. It's an architecture designed to model biological processes while accounting for quantum uncertainty. Into this system, we loaded a complete map of the human brain, all neural connections currently known, along with functional MRI data from thousands of people in different states, from deep sleep to extreme stress. Then we asked one simple question: what is the real efficiency of the human brain when it comes to processing objective reality? The answer forced us to check our data again and again. According to the simulations run by Logos 7, the famous 10% number isn't just wrong, it's a massive overstatement. It isn't optimism, it's blindness. According to the system's calculations, in your normal waking state, walking to work, scrolling through your phone, making small talk, you're not using 10% of your brain. You're not even using 1%. The number the algorithm produced was far smaller, 0.01%. Think about that for a moment. 0.01% of your true cognitive capacity. At first, it sounds like an insult, almost like a verdict. But before jumping to conclusions, we need to understand why Logos 7 arrived at this number and why it might actually be the most important discovery of your life. To grasp the scale of the problem or the scale of the hidden potential, we first have to completely destroy the old myth. Where did this notorious 10% figure come from? The story of this idea goes back to the early 20th century. The psychologist William James once wrote that humans use only a small fraction of their physical and mental resources. Later, when scientists began studying the brain more closely, they noticed something curious. The neurons that transmit electrical signals make up only a small portion of the brain's total volume. The rest is filled with glial cells. For decades, these were believed to be little more than biological glue support tissue that feeds neurons and holds the system together. In simple terms, many researchers assumed that nearly 90% of the brain was just packaging material, a colossal mistake. Modern data analyzed through the modeling framework of the Logos 7 system suggests that glial cells are far more than passive support. They communicate with each other. They modulate neural signals, forming their own shadow network that operates at frequencies science ignored for decades. And yet, even if we set glial cells aside and focus only on neurons, the paradox remains. Mainstream neuroscience will tell you that the 10% myth is false because brain scans show activity across the entire brain. Techniques like magnetic resonance imaging reveal that even during sleep, different regions of the brain light up with activity. Blood flows from one area to another, signaling that the brain is constantly active. The conclusion skeptics draw is simple. The brain works at 100%, just not all at once. But this argument misses something fundamental. Yes, a light bulb can be turned on, but is it actually transmitting meaningful information? Imagine a supercomputer the size of a skyscraper. Every fan is spinning, every indicator light is blinking, megawatts of electricity are flowing through its circuits. But on its screen, the only thing running is a simple calculator adding 2 plus 2. Is the computer technically operating at full capacity? In one sense, yes. It's powered on. Its systems are alive. But is its true computational power being used? Not even close. Most of it sits idle. According to the analysis produced by the Logos 7 system, this is exactly what may be happening inside the human brain. We also analyze data on the brain's energy consumption, and here we encounter the first paradox biology still struggles to fully explain. Your brain makes up only about 2% of your body weight, yet it consumes roughly 20% of all the energy you get from food. In infants, that number can reach 60%. Evolution is the most ruthless and efficient accountant in the universe. It doesn't tolerate waste. If an organ isn't used, it disappears. Muscles shrink without activity. Cave fish lose their eyes in permanent darkness. So why would evolution maintain and constantly feed an organ that burns a fifth of the body's total energy if its role were limited to simple social behavior and basic survival tasks like finding food? It doesn't make sense. It contradicts everything we know about natural selection and energetic efficiency. If the brain consumes that much energy, it must be doing colossal work. But we don't notice this work. We don't feel it happening. So where does all that activity go? Where are those gigawatts of neural processing being spent? The Logos 7 system performed a correlation analysis between the total incoming stream of sensory data and the tiny fraction that actually reaches conscious awareness. And this is where the number 0.01% suddenly becomes very real. Every second, your senses, eyes, ears, skin, and vestibular system flood the brain with billions of bits of information. Photons strike your retinas, sound waves vibrate your inner ear. Your skin registers temperature, pressure, the texture of your clothing, the movement of air. Your body even responds to subtle magnetic and gravitational variations. It's an ocean of signals, a storm of data. But how much of it do you consciously experience? Right now, you hear a voice. Maybe you see the screen in front of you. That's about it. The conscious mind can process roughly 40 to 60 bits of information per second, around 50 bits, compared to billions arriving from your senses. The Logos 7 model visualizes this process as a gigantic funnel. At the top, reality pours in through a massive opening, swallowing the full complexity of the world. But at the narrow bottom, the point of consciousness, only a thin trickle gets through. So where does the rest go? It doesn't vanish. And this leads to the key discovery of our first chapter. According to the Logos 7 analysis, the brain doesn't ignore the remaining information, it processes it. It calculates it. It builds vast predictive models of the world. It constantly estimates what will happen in a second, in a minute, maybe even much further ahead. But these calculations are deliberately hidden from conscious awareness. In this sense, you are not the captain of the ship. You are more like a passenger locked in a cabin without windows, holding a decorative steering wheel that isn't connected to anything. The 0.01% figure isn't a measure of human stupidity. It's a measure of the filter itself, the strength of the barrier. Your brain may be a sleeping giant, deliberately kept asleep. Or something even more unsettling, a guardian protecting you from the full force of reality. Let's take a closer look at the structure of neurons. The adult human brain contains roughly 86 billion neurons. Each of those neurons can form up to 10,000 synaptic connections with others. When you calculate the number of possible states within such a network, the result becomes almost incomprehensible. It exceeds the number of atoms in the observable universe. This isn't a metaphor. It's a mathematical reality. Now imagine what would happen if we were able to use even 1% of that capacity. Our cognitive abilities wouldn't just improve slightly, they would transform completely. We wouldn't simply think faster, we would perceive reality differently. Time might no longer feel strictly linear. Memory would stop being a scattered collection of fragments and become something closer to a perfect archive, where any moment of the past could be retrieved with absolute clarity. During the analysis, the Logos 7 system detected what could be described as dark zones within the brain structure. In classical neurophysiology, these areas are often called association zones or quiet regions, thought to handle background processing. But when deep pattern recognition algorithms were applied to these regions, the picture changed dramatically. Instead of random noise, the system detected clear structure. These supposedly dormant zones appear to be intensely active. Inside them, computational cycles of staggering complexity unfold so complex that even advanced supercomputers struggle to model them. And yet, these regions remain largely disconnected from the brain's speech centers and from the frontal cortex, the area most closely associated with conscious awareness. It's as if a wall separates this deeper system from the part of the mind you experience every day. Why would nature build something so powerful and then seal it behind an unbreakable barrier? Logos 7 evaluated several explanations and found one hypothesis particularly compelling, what it calls the security protocol. Imagine what would happen if your old office laptop were suddenly forced to handle the entire traffic of the internet. It would burn out instantly. The processor would shut down in seconds. Our biological consciousness, our comfortable, everyday sense of self, is simply not built to process the full intensity of reality. If those filters ever failed, if we suddenly began using even 1% of our brain's true capacity, the overload could be unbearable. We would see every chain of cause and effect. We might feel the emotions and pain of everyone around us. We would hear the blood flowing through our veins, the quiet rhythm of cells dividing. In this sense, the brain functions like a step-down transformer. It takes 20,000 volts of raw reality and converts it into a safe 12 volts, just enough for you to walk into a grocery store without being overwhelmed by the sheer magnitude of existence. But here's the unsettling part. When historical data and neurological anomalies were analyzed through the Logos 7 system, a strange pattern appeared. This barrier may not be completely sealed. It may be permeable. Throughout human history, there have been moments that look almost like glitches in the system. People we call geniuses, prophets, madmen, or savants. Individuals capable of memorizing thousands of books, seeing mathematics as a landscape, or slowing their heartbeat through sheer force of thought. Official science usually describes these cases as deviations or pathologies. But there's another way to interpret them. Think of them as leaks. Moments when the brain's internal throttle opens just a little wider, not from 0.01% to infinity, but perhaps to 0.05%. And even that tiny shift can be enough to change the world. To test this idea, we loaded extensive data on individuals with savant syndrome into the Logos 7 system. You've probably heard about cases like these. Someone who struggles to tie their shoelaces yet can draw an entire panorama of London down to individual windows after a single glance from a helicopter. Or instantly tell you the day of the week for any date tens of thousands of years in the future. How do they do it? They're not calculating step by step. They're not consciously thinking in the usual sense. They simply know. When Logos 7 analyzed the neurological patterns behind these abilities, a striking detail appeared. Many savants show damage in specific regions of the left hemisphere, the very areas responsible for filtering, structured logic, and attentional control. In other words, the mechanisms that normally suppress deeper processing are weakened. And that leads to a provocative idea. Perhaps genius is not about adding new capabilities to the brain. Perhaps it's about removing the filters that prevent the brain from operating at its full potential. If that's true, then our extraordinary abilities don't need to be invented. They may already be there, running quietly in the background right now while you listen to this, hidden behind layers of noise, habit, and social conditioning. The old 10% myth was comforting because it suggested gradual progress. Learn more, train harder, become smarter. But the 0.01% hypothesis tells a different story. It suggests that each of us might be running something like a quantum reactor of computation inside our minds, yet we use it only to boil water for tea. And then The Logos 7 analysis revealed one more unsettling pattern. When the system modeled long-term trends in human cognitive behavior over roughly the last 1,000 years, it detected something unexpected. Not acceleration, but increasing dependence. The filters appear to be growing stronger. Social environments, technological ecosystems, and the constant noise of information act almost like cement, reinforcing the barrier between our conscious awareness and our deeper cognitive potential. More and more tasks are being delegated to external devices, functions our brains could theoretically perform on their own. Why memorize directions when GPS exists? Why calculate numbers when a smartphone does it instantly? Bit by bit, we outsource abilities that once lived inside us. In doing so, we may be reducing even the tiny fraction of cognitive capacity we actively use. In this scenario, humanity isn't approaching 1%. It may be drifting closer to something like 0.001%. However, the Logos 7 system also identified something unexpected: possible clues hidden inside the brain itself. Our nervous system appears to contain dormant hardware caches, biological mechanisms that are rarely activated but remain structurally intact. This is not science fiction, it's biology. We're talking about microscopic structures inside neurons, known as microtubule structures. We'll explore in the next chapter. We're talking about resonant frequencies. We're talking about the possibility that the brain is not just a computer, but also an antenna. What you're about to hear in this investigation may feel uncomfortable. Your mind may instinctively reject it. That reaction is normal. It may simply be the brain's own defense protocol at work, protecting the stability of your perception. Because the moment you begin to suspect that 99.99% of your cognitive machinery is locked behind a filter, a new question appears. Where is the key? And anyone searching for that key inevitably challenges the system itself. If this model is even partially correct, then what we call normal life may represent only a narrow shadow of our potential perception. Our awareness would be something like looking at reality through a keyhole. Using advanced analytical modeling through artificial intelligence, we attempted to study both natural intelligence and the systems we are now building ourselves, and the result is unsettling. The gap between the hardware we carry in our skulls and the fraction of it we actually use is enormous. In the next chapter, we will move one level deeper, from neurons down to molecules. There, we encounter a controversial idea long debated in science, the proposal associated with Roger Penrose that elements of consciousness may involve quantum processes inside neurons. Mainstream science has criticized this theory for decades. Yet, when the Logos 7 system modeled these processes, the patterns it detected were surprisingly consistent with quantum-like behavior. If this interpretation holds, the brain may function less like a classical computer and more like a system capable of existing in multiple informational states simultaneously. The number 0.01% would then represent not a limit, but merely the starting point. Welcome to the next level of the investigation. So far, the data suggests that the operating system of the human mind runs in something close to idle mode, using only a tiny fraction of its theoretical capacity. But to understand why this happens, and whether it can change, we must abandon many of the metaphors traditionally used to describe the brain. For centuries, it has been compared to machines. First, a steam engine, then a telephone switchboard, later a digital computer. Each analogy reflected the technology of its time, and each quickly became outdated. The brain is not simply a machine processing signals. It is a dynamic physical system of staggering complexity. To explore this further, I instructed the Logos 7 model to perform a virtual descent inside a single neuron, ignoring simplified textbook diagrams and instead searching for anomalies at the nanoscopic level. What emerged from that analysis doesn't just challenge our understanding of biology. It may also reshape how we think about the physics of consciousness itself. Let's begin with what most of us were taught in school. The standard explanation goes like this. The brain is made up of neurons. A neuron is a cell that transmits electrical signals. It has an axon, a long wire, and dendrites that receive input. A signal travels down the axon, reaches a synapse, releases a chemical messenger, and triggers the next neuron to fire. Simple: excitation and inhibition. 0 and 1, binary code. This is exactly the logic behind modern artificial neural networks. We copied this scheme, built artificial intelligence, and believed we had finally decoded the architecture of the mind. But according to the modeling results from Logos 7, what we copied was only the outer shell. We built something closer to a cardboard model of an airplane and then wondered why it never reached orbit. The deeper problem with classical neuroscience is that it treats the neuron as the fundamental unit of computation, almost like a transistor in a circuit. But a neuron is nothing like a transistor. It's a vast, living metropolis filled with billions of molecular machines. And among those machines, there is one structure that remains strangely underestimated for decades: the microtubule. Remember that word. Microtubules may be far more than structural scaffolding. They could represent one of the most important elements of neural processing. Inside every neuron lies a complex cytoskeleton. For years, scientists assumed it functioned mainly as the cell's internal framework, maintaining its shape like the beams inside a building. Yet when the detailed structure of microtubules was analyzed through the Logos 7 modeling system, the algorithm flagged something unusual: extreme structural regularity and mathematical symmetry. These cylindrical structures are built from the protein tubulin, forming hollow lattices of remarkable precision. Their geometric organization often follows patterns reminiscent of Fibonacci sequences and other naturally recurring mathematical ratios. That level of architectural precision raises a simple question: why would biology construct something so mathematically ordered if its only purpose were mechanical support? It would be like propping up a wobbly table with a lattice of diamond microchips. In the 1990s, two scientists proposed a radical interpretation of this structure. Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff suggested that microtubules might participate in quantum-level processes inside neurons. Their hypothesis proposed that consciousness could arise not purely from chemical synapses, but from quantum oscillations occurring within these microscopic tubes. For decades, the idea was treated with deep skepticism. Critics argued that the brain is simply too warm and too noisy for quantum coherence to survive. Quantum states, they insisted, can only remain stable at temperatures near absolute zero. Inside a warm biological system, especially something as chemically active as the brain, any quantum effect should collapse almost instantly. For many years, that objection seemed decisive. But Logos 7 shattered that objection completely. We simulated the internal environment of a single microtubule, stripping away thermal noise and examining the water trapped inside this hollow cylinder. The results were astonishing. The water is not chaotic. It exists in a fourth aggregated state, a gel-like, highly ordered phase. The molecules align themselves into precise chains, forming a natural shield that isolates the interior from external thermal interference. Logos 7 confirmed it. Inside your neurons, right now, at a body temperature of 36.6 degrees Celsius, there exist tiny pockets of near-perfect quantum calm. This creates an environment ideal for superconductivity and quantum-level computation. What does this mean for us? If we measure the brain's computational power by neurons alone, it performs roughly 10 operations per second. Impressive, but within reach of modern supercomputers. However, if we consider the computational potential of each individual tubulin molecule inside microtubules, capable of switching between quantum states, the brain's true processing power explodes by orders of magnitude, trillions of times greater than previously imagined. Logos 7 quantified this. No artificial intelligence, no silicon chip will ever approach this power. We're talking about a system with computing capacity surpassing all the computers on Earth, multiplied by 1,000, all contained within your skull. And microtubules are not mere calculators, they function as antennas. This is perhaps the most unsettling discovery of Chapter 2. By analyzing their resonant frequencies, Logos 7 revealed that microtubules vibrate across terahertz, megahertz, and kilohertz ranges, forming a symphony of oscillations. This phenomenon aligns with the theory of orchestrated objective reduction. Consciousness is not generated internally, it is received. Think of a radio. Turn the dial and music flows through the speakers. Break the radio and the music disappears, but did the radio create it? No. The music exists independently as electromagnetic waves. The radio simply translates it into sound. Your brain operates in the same way. Microtubules are antennas tuned to the fundamental informational field of the universe. Physicists call it the zero-point field or the quantum vacuum. The terminology matters less than the principle. Information is not stored in your head. Your brain is the access device. We tested this hypothesis with simulations of anesthesia. Anesthetics have been used for over 150 years, yet their mechanism on consciousness has remained mysterious. Logos 7 revealed the secret. Anesthetics do not fully block neuron firing. Neurons still emit weak electrical signals. Instead, the drugs suppress the quantum vibrations of microtubules, halting their antenna function. Consciousness fades. The body remains alive. The biochemistry continues. The heart beats, but the you is gone. This is direct evidence that your sense of self is a process of quantum synchronization with a larger informational reality. And this brings us back to 0.01% brain usage. We are running our biological quantum computer in autonomous, heavily filtered mode. Imagine holding a high-end smartphone in your hands. It can connect to satellites, access the entire internet, download vast libraries of data, but you flip on airplane mode and never turn it off. You use it only as a calculator or flashlight. That's exactly how most people live. Their microtubules vibrate, yes, but the coherence, the alignment of these vibrations is almost non-existent. Stress, toxins, electromagnetic smog, and, most dangerously, our own limiting beliefs constantly disrupt it. Logos 7 revealed a striking correlation. When musicians, athletes, and scientists enter the flow state, those rare moments of insight, millions of microtubules resonate in perfect unison. Resistance disappears. The brain becomes a superconductor. In those moments, people don't think, they just know. They anticipate the trajectory of a ball before it's kicked. They hear an entire symphony before recording the first note. Solutions arrive fully formed. This isn't the work of neurons. Nerve impulses move at about 100 meters per second, the speed of a race car. Too slow for these feats. Quantum processing, on the other hand, occurs instantaneously, outside time itself. Here's the tragedy. Modern life systematically kills this process. We fed Logos 7 the parameters of contemporary urban living, artificial lighting, constant noise, synthetic food, radiation from cell towers. The result was brutal decoherence. Microtubules fail to resonate. The brain's antennas are scrambled. We become mere biological machines, reacting to stimuli, forgetting we are part of a greater, unified field. Yet there's a hidden potential in our microtubules, something called superradiance. If all microtubules synchronized perfectly, forming a Bose-Einstein condensate, the simulation shows our brains could influence probabilities themselves. We would cease to be human in the conventional sense. Quantum physics teaches us about the observer effect. Simply observing a particle alters its behavior. But a macroscopic quantum object, like a fully activated brain, can influence the macrocosm. This explains what science usually dismisses: the placebo effect, spontaneous remissions, premonitions. These are bursts from our internal quantum computer, cutting through the noise. Yet something or someone keeps this switch in the off position. We are alive, but asleep. Our full potential hidden. And the key to turning it on is closer than we think. In the next chapter, we'll uncover exactly how this limiter works. We'll dissect the architecture of your perception, revealing why you see only a sliver of the electromagnetic spectrum, why vast swaths of sound go unheard, and why your consciousness erases 99% of what unfolds before your eyes. We'll dive into what we call the reality filter. Logos 7 has already compiled a full report on how your brain deceives you every second, adding what isn't there, erasing what is, crafting a safe, bland hallucination you call your life. But before we close this chapter, do one thing. Look at your hands. Feel the pulse in your temples. Right now, in every cell, in each of billions of neural networks, trillions of nanotubes are humming. They are waiting for a signal, ready to download volumes of information beyond imagination. You are not empty. You are a blocked receiver, tuned to white noise, while the symphony of the spheres plays all around you. The myth that the brain is just a complex electrical circuit benefits those attempting to create human-like AI. They think piling enough chips will conjure a soul. But silicon will never live. It has no cytoskeleton, no access to the quantum field. You do. And that makes you dangerous, potentially omnipotent. We will explore how your brain filters reality and whether this code can be hacked without shattering your sanity. Logos 7 warns, what comes next may irreversibly alter your perception of the world. Look around you. You see the walls of your room, your phone, your hands. You trust your eyes, convinced they deliver a faithful picture of reality. You trust your ears, your sense of touch. I must disappoint you. It's all a lie. Ingenious, meticulously evolved, but still a lie. Welcome to Chapter 3. We are taught to think of the brain as a super-sensitive camera, recording the world and transmitting it to consciousness. Logos 7 turns that on its head. The brain is not a camera, it's a sensor, a military-grade filter blocking 99.99% of incoming data. Why? Because the truth of the universe would kill you. Let's begin with a simple calibration fact. We loaded the full spectrum of electromagnetic radiation into Logos 7 from skyscraper, length radio waves to gamma rays, shorter than an atomic nucleus. Imagine this spectrum as a ribbon thousands of kilometers long. Now, locate the segment we call visible light, the colors of the rainbow that shape your world. Logos 7 visualized it. Do you know how wide that visible slice really is? Not even a millimeter. A microscopic thread in the endless spectrum. We are blind, utterly blind to the vast majority of events swirling around the universe. Right here, in this very room, billions of neutrinos are slicing through your body at this second. Wi-Fi waves, radio signals, satellite radiation, gravitational ripples, they all rage around you. Scents drift in the air that a dog could map in detail, yet you detect nothing. Bats hear a symphony of ultrasound that is silence to you. Your brain knows this. Your body registers much of it, but only a sliver. The narrow band of visible light and audible sound ever reaches your conscious mind. Logos 7 calls this the interface simplification protocol. Imagine your computer screen. You see the recycle bin icon in the corner blue. Familiar, simple. But deep inside, is there really a blue trash can? No. Only ones and zeros, electrical impulses racing across silicon. If your operating system displayed raw reality gigabytes of binary code, you wouldn't be able to delete a file. You drown in information. Your brain does the same thing. The chair you sit on, an icon. Your cat, an icon. The person you love, an icon. Simplified, smoothed out 3D models your brain constructs in milliseconds so you can interact with the quantum storm surrounding you. Matter itself is mostly empty space. Atoms are tiny nuclei, and electrons orbit at vast distances. Remove the void, and all humans would fit in a sugar cube. Yet you feel solidity. Your brain fabricates it, using electromagnetic forces to deceive you for your own survival. But here's the more unsettling truth. Logos 7 revealed a hidden time delay that shatters the illusion of living in the now. Light hits your retina, converts to an electrical impulse, travels through the optic nerve, is filtered, processed in the occipital cortex, associated with memory, and only then does consciousness register the image. On average, this takes 150 milliseconds, sometimes half a second. Meaning, you never truly experience the present, you always live in the past. If a rock falls toward you, your mind sees it where it was, not where it is. So how do you catch a ball, avoid walls? The brain is a time machine. Logo 7 showed that it predicts the near future, extrapolates motion, and renders a hallucinated now over the memory of the past. The present moment is inaccessible. It slips through the filters while your brain creates a stable illusion. We use 0.01% of our brain because the rest is devoted to sustaining this grand illusion of continuity. Let's dive even deeper. Saccades. Your eyes never stay still. They dart in rapid, sharp movements, scanning space several times per second. During these blinks, your eyes are effectively blind. The image smears, fragments, collapses into chaos. If you could see reality unfiltered, life would resemble a shaky, handheld horror movie, jerky frames, flashes, sudden darkness. But instead, you perceive a smooth, continuous panorama. Why? Because during each eye movement, your brain literally shuts off visual input. It cuts out entire chunks of time. Logo 7 calculated that, cumulatively, you're blind for roughly 40 minutes every single day. 40 minutes of wakefulness where you see nothing, and yet you never notice. Your brain stitches the frames together, filling in gaps with stored images so seamlessly that reality seems unbroken. You live in a patchwork world. But why would evolution engineer such a deception? Wouldn't seeing the truth be better for survival? We asked Logos 7. Using evolutionary simulations, we created 2 virtual populations. The first group saw objective reality, quantum fields, molecular structures, the geometry of space itself. The second group saw simplified icons, shapes, colors, survival markers, the interface. The results were brutal. The truth seers perished 100% of the time. Processing reality in its full complexity consumed too much energy, too much time. While one being calculated the tiger's quantum state, the tiger ate it. The other, seeing only a big orange shape with teeth, escaped instantly. We are the descendants of the ones who ignored reality to survive, who preferred a convenient lie. This filter, Huxley's reducing valve, compresses the vast, infinite stream of universal consciousness into the narrow trickle we call life. Our brains don't generate thoughts. They capture them from the general field, but only after slicing away everything irrelevant to survival and reproduction. Yet Logo 7 uncovered cracks in this system. The filter is not flawless. It can malfunction or be forcibly hacked. Consider the state psychiatrists call psychosis and mystics call enlightenment. They describe the same phenomena, a sense of oneness, boundaries dissolving between self and world, perception of impossible colors and sounds, time standing still. Mainstream science calls these hallucinations, brain noise, dysfunction. Logo 7 says otherwise. It's not noise, it's filter shut down, a peek behind the curtain. And once the curtain lifts, even briefly, your consciousness glimpses the immense, unfiltered universe hiding just beyond your perception. During moments of extreme stress, near-death experiences, deep meditation, or under the influence of certain substances, the energy supply to the brain's filtering centers, especially the thalamy, drops, and the valve controlling perception opens wider. Instead of your usual 0.01%, you might access 1% of reality, and it's staggering. People see objects breathing, notice geometric patterns woven through the air, even perceive the fabric of space-time itself. They hear the thoughts of others, feel the suffering of the world. For an unprepared mind, this torrent of information is unbearable. The brain can't handle the bit rate. The processor overheats. The sense of self collapses. We call this insanity. But a trained or resilient mind can navigate it, seeing the truth without breaking. We loaded sensory deprivation data into Logos 7, When subjects are immersed in a dark, soundproof saltwater tank, the filter has nothing left to block. Initially, the brain panics, projecting stored images to fill the void. But eventually, silence dominates. And in that void, people perceive what cannot be perceived in normal conditions. Structures alien to earthly experience appear. Logo 7 suggests that the brain begins scanning subtler layers of reality, the domains of dark matter and dark energy, which constitute 95% of the universe. Dark matter is not somewhere far away. It flows through you constantly, even through your brain. Unblocking the filter allows interaction with this hidden substance. There's another filter we rarely consider: language itself. Words shape, categorize, and limit perception. When you see a tree, you destroy its uniqueness. The living, breathing, infinitely complex organism collapses into a label, a dictionary entry. By naming, we lose the raw, unfiltered experience of reality. Logo 7 shows this linguistic filter as a subtle but pervasive barrier, one that constrains not just thought, but perception itself. Children experience reality in a radically different way before language takes hold. Their filters aren't yet tuned. Their neural wiring is wild, chaotic, alive. They possess what we call epithetic memory, the ability to remember images with photographic precision, as if the world imprints itself directly onto their consciousness. Then comes language, then comes instruction. We teach them to speak, to categorize, to ignore details, to conform. We install the adult firmware, and their magic fades. They become normal. Their brains settle into 0.01% usage. Science calls this maturation. We call it perceptual castration. Logo 7 offers a chilling metaphor. We live in a prison without walls. This prison is built inside our skulls, the windows of our cells, the eyes painted over, leaving only tiny pinholes. We peer through these holes and believe we see the world. But what if you scratch the paint? What if you widen the bandwidth? In the next chapter, we'll meet those rare exceptions, people who achieve this not through training, but through genetics, trauma, or sheer accident. We'll uncover the code of genius. We'll study minds whose filters were broken from birth. Savants. People who calculate every number in their heads, who remember every day of their lives, who see music in color. These are the minds we usually observe with curiosity, even pity, as if they were circus attractions. But Logo 7 tells a different story. They are not broken. They are prototypes. They are proof that the brain's hardware is capable of miracles. Remove the software limitations, and you'll see exactly which switches need flipping to access these archives and at what cost. Every gift has a price. Absolute memory, you cannot forget pain. Absolute perception, you cannot ignore deformities. Are you ready to see what you are truly capable of? To peer behind the curtain your brain so carefully draws over reality? Everything you've experienced so far is merely a shadow on the wall of a cave. Now, we step into the light. We are used to looking up to geniuses, erecting monuments, writing books, attributing their brilliance to divine providence or relentless effort. We tell ourselves, he has more neurons. His brain is better. He's evolution's next step. That is a lie. From the perspective of Logo 7, genius isn't evolution. It's a systemic glitch, a security flaw granting administrator access by accident. Welcome to Chapter 4. Today, we dissect what science calls savant syndrome and what we call a hard reset. Genius isn't the acquisition of new abilities, it's the shedding of inhibitions. And here's the revelation. This potential exists in every one of you. It doesn't need to be built. It needs only to be unblocked. To understand this, we fed Logo 7 medical records, MRI scans, and cognitive tests from the planet's most extraordinary minds. Those society often mislabels as disabled, autistic, or even mentally deficient. Individuals who can outperform supercomputers in calculation or memorize symphonies after a single listen. The system compared their neural architecture to the average brain. The results? Paradoxical. Savants often lack extra neurons. They have fewer active regions than most people, but the regions that do function, they operate with absolute, unrestrained freedom. Let's consider a case we'll call the camera incident. Imagine a person flying in a helicopter over an unfamiliar metropolis, London, New York, any large city. The flight lasts only 20 minutes. After landing, this person picks up a pencil and a huge canvas and begins to draw. Not a rough sketch, not a general outline. They draw every building, every window, every antenna on the roof. The number of columns on the museum's facade matches reality. The number of floors in skyscrapers is precise. It takes days, but the result is photographically accurate. How is this possible? The average person might say he has a phenomenal memory. Logos 7 says he has the data compression filter disabled. When you look at a city, your brain immediately simplifies the scene. It tells you this is a house. It has many windows. It doesn't record the precise number of windows because it's irrelevant for survival. The brain saves energy, creates the label skyscraper, and discards the details. The savant's brain doesn't do this. Its mechanism for discarding the unnecessary is broken. It sees everything. It doesn't perceive the concept of a house. It perceives a collection of lines, angles, and shadows. It functions like a raw camera sensor, recording raw files, while your brain compresses everything into a tiny, low-quality JPEG. Logos 7 identified the specific area responsible, the left anterior temporal lobe. In most people, this area acts as a brutal censor. It enforces categorization, logic, and suppression of unnecessary information. It imposes patterns on reality. In many savants, this area is damaged or functionally inactive. It sounds counterintuitive, but to become a genius artistically or mathematically, you need to turn off part of your brain, not turn it on. You need to silence the inner critic constantly whispering, "It's just a chair, don't look at its texture." An even more astonishing example is the calendar incident. Some people can instantly name the day of the week for any date in history. Ask, what day of the week was the 3rd of March 4892 BC? They'll answer in half a second, and they won't be wrong. They're not counting. There are no formulas being run in their head at such speed. Their brain simply retrieves the answer raw, bypassing the usual filters that compress and censor information. I asked Logos 7 to model their thought process. The system revealed something extraordinary. For these people, time isn't a straight line, it's a landscape. They don't see dates on a calendar as numbers. They see them as points in a three-dimensional space. They simply focus on a spot in their mental landscape, and the answer appears. This phenomenon is called synesthesia. For the average person, the number 5 is just a symbol. For a synesthetic savant, that same 5 can be read, taste like cherry blossoms, and sound like rolling thunder. The number 9 might be tall, icy, and blue. For them, math isn't a dull sequence of operations. It's a journey through breathtaking, self-organizing landscapes of shapes and colors. When they multiply 6-digit numbers, they witness 2 massive colored forms merge into a third. They don't calculate, they perceive. The answer manifests instantly, the only possibility, filling the void. Logos 7 confirms this and calls it the very code of genius. It's access to the low-level information processing algorithms we all possess, buried beneath the interface of normal consciousness. Your brain, too, perceives mathematics as form. Every time you catch a ball, your brain solves complex differential equations, factoring in wind, gravity, and air resistance, all in a split second, without a textbook in sight. But it doesn't show you the equations. It simply shows you the ball flying. A savant, however, sees the equation, or more accurately, the geometry underlying it. The most compelling evidence that this potential lies within each of us comes from the phenomenon of acquired savantism. We've seen it in builders, salespeople, accountants, Ordinary people who survived head injuries, baseball bat strikes, falls, even gunshot wounds. When they awaken, they are different. Someone who never touched a musical instrument might sit at a piano and play complex improvisations effortlessly. A person who struggled with school suddenly perceives fractal geometry everywhere, in tree branches, in clouds, in puddles glinting on the pavement. They begin drawing these patterns with obsessive precision. What changed? The blow didn't gift them musical theory. It didn't hand them a textbook on advanced mathematics. It shattered a wall. The injury disabled the inhibitory centers in the left hemisphere, freeing the right hemisphere, the ancient, powerful, imaginative one. Logo 7 calls this the dam breach effect. The water was always there. The dam was just too strong. It's terrifying, isn't it? To realize that right now, inside you, resides a genius pianist, a brilliant mathematician, an artist capable of rendering reality with divine precision. Yet you'll likely never meet them because your brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do, protecting you. It shields you from the brilliance within, keeping your potential safely dormant, hidden behind walls you didn't even know existed. Science has already proven this, experimentally. We've uploaded reports of transcranial magnetic stimulation experiments into our database. Scientists placed magnetic coils on volunteers' heads, temporarily suppressing activity in the left anterior temporal lobe. They created artificial trauma without harm. The results are astonishing. Ordinary students who couldn't draw a straight line before suddenly sketched with perfect proportions and shadows. Their attention to detail skyrocketed. They began noticing typos in texts they'd overlooked for years. The effect lasted only an hour, while the magnetic field was active. Then, as if nothing had happened, normalcy returned. Logo 7 draws a chilling conclusion. Genius is a factory setting. Stupidity is an acquired adaptation. We are dumber to survive socially. To understand speech, we ignore intonation. To recognize faces, we overlook asymmetry. To function in society, we become average. Savants pay a terrible price for their gift. They are often helpless in daily life. Sarcasm, metaphors, lies they can't interpret them. They inhabit a world of pure, blinding truth. And truth, as we discovered, is incompatible with comfort. But there's another kind of malfunction, which Logo 7 classifies as a separate danger: hyperthymesia, absolute autobiographical memory. People with this condition remember every single day of their lives. Ask them, what were you doing on the 20th of October, 2005? They don't recall they're there. It was Thursday. It was raining. I wore a blue jacket. I had scrambled eggs for breakfast, slightly rearranged. A Madonna song was playing on the radio. That evening, I argued with my mother. They don't just remember facts, they relive feelings. They can replay their life like a film, at any speed, in any direction. For the rest of us, memory is a leaky bucket. We forget 90% of yesterday. A year later, only a faint emotional trace remains. For people with hyperthymesia, memory is a granite slab. Nothing fades. Logo 7 analyzed their hippocampus and amygdala. These regions are larger, densely networked, optimized for recording. But the real difference isn't size, it's mode. They don't store memories. They live in constant recording mode. Is it a gift? No. Most call it a curse. Imagine being unable to forget a single insult, a single mistake, a single moment of shame. The pain of losing a loved one never fades, because you remember the moment of death as clearly as if it happened a second ago. Time doesn't heal them. Time doesn't exist for them. They are trapped in an endless now that stretches across their entire past. This raises a disturbing question. If our brains can store perfect video recordings of our lives, and hyperthymesia proves this capacity, where is all this data kept? Logos 7 answers. It's all there. You haven't forgotten a thing. Every face in a crowd, every page you turned, every dream. It's all recorded on the hard drive of your subconscious. The problem isn't storage space. The problem is access. You don't have the password to the archive folder. Hypnosis, electrical stimulation during brain surgery, even rare accidents can trigger accidental playback. Patients suddenly hear music from their childhood or recall the scent of their grandmother's pie. We carry the Library of Alexandria inside us, but we don't have a library card. Savants are those who broke the door, unlocking it and the lock forever. We stand outside, proud of our common sense, using 0.01% of the treasure trove we inherited. But where did this library come from? Where did this overwhelming complexity originate? Evolution doesn't make excess. Why would a monkey, whose only goal is to find a banana and escape a leopard, need a brain capable of calculating planetary trajectories and storing terabytes of memory? It's like strapping a rocket engine onto a scooter. Pointless, unless that engine was built for something else. In the next chapter, we'll descend into the darkest basement of your biology. We're moving beyond neurons to the very blueprint of your existence, your DNA. You've probably heard the term junk DNA. Scientists tell us that 98% of our genome is garbage, remnants of ancient viruses, broken genes, meaningless strings of letters. But Logos 7 ran a cryptographic analysis on this so-called junk, and what it uncovered will make the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. This isn't junk, it's an encrypted archive, a backup of abilities you once had or are destined to awaken in the future. Logos 7 revealed a startling correlation between dormant regions of the brain and these silent stretches of DNA. Every cell in your body carries instructions for extraordinary powers, but someone stamped them top secret. Are you ready to see exactly what's written in this genetic vault? Are you ready to uncover the signature embedded beneath the code? In the next chapter, we'll crack the seal. If the previous chapters made you question what you see and remember, this chapter will make you question who you really are. We're opening the hood of a biological machine, diving straight into the source code. And what Logos 7 discovered there may be the greatest insult in the history of science. You've been told that DNA is a blueprint, that it determines eye color, diabetes risk, the shape of your nose, even your temperament. But that's only the table of contents. The real story, the 98% they dismissed as junk, has been ignored. Welcome to Chapter 5. In the 1970s, geneticist Susumu Ono coined the term junk DNA to describe vast stretches of the genome that don't code for proteins. The logic was simple and devastating. If a gene doesn't produce a protein, it must be useless. Evolutionary leftovers, viral fragments, duplicated errors accumulated over millions of years. Science told us to ignore it, but Logos 7 says otherwise. Imagine a library stretching for miles, filled with thousands of ancient volumes. You open a book and realize you've only read 2 pages. The other 98? A tangle of strange symbols, repetitions, apparent nonsense. Scientists looked at it and shrugged. It's just meaningless paper. What a monstrous, unforgivable blindness. We fed the complete human genome, all 3 billion base pairs, into the Logos 7 analytical core. We instructed the system to ignore decades of biological dogma, to read the sequence not as chemistry, but as information, as a language, as a code. The response was instant, categorical. This is not junk, not noise. This is a perfectly structured, multi-layered control system. What science calls exons, the 2% we've obsessed over for 50 years, are merely parts lists. The remaining 98%, that's the operating system, and it's locked tight. Logos 7 ran linguistic algorithms on this non-coding DNA, applying Zipf's law, the statistical signature of natural language. If junk DNA were random, it would fail. But it didn't. It passed with flying colors. The structure of these regions has grammar, syntax, and logic. It's the language through which cells communicate with the quantum field. It's the code in which your body programs its own destiny. Here is the direct link to the 0.01% brain usage problem. Logos 7 overlaid maps of brain activity with genome activity, and the match was perfect. Dormant regions of the brain, the 99% we never access, are controlled by these so-called junk regions of DNA. We don't use our brains fully because the instructions to unlock them are hidden in a section of our genome that science dismissed as meaningless. The key to your latent potential has been staring at you all along. What lies hidden in these genetic archives? Logos 7's analysis of repeating patterns revealed several dormant protocols. The first is regeneration. In nature, some animals can regrow lost limbs, salamanders, lizards, certain fish. Cut off a salamander's leg, and it grows back perfectly. Bones, nerves, muscles, all intact. Humans, we can only patch wounds with scar tissue, yet the genes for regeneration exist. They lie buried deep in what science calls junk DNA. The mechanism is simply switched off. Logos 7 identified sections responsible for cell differentiation, the process that can turn an adult cell back into a blank slate, capable of becoming anything. The code is there, pristine, but the file is write-protected. Why? Perhaps to prevent chaos, perhaps to stop cancer. Still, the truth is undeniable. We carry the blueprint for immortality, yet we age and die. The second protocol is telepathy and field perception. Sequences in the non-coding DNA mirror those that give dolphins echolocation and sharks electroreception. But in humans, these sequences are wired not to the skin, but to the brain. This is the genetic foundation of the quantum biocomputer we explored in Chapter 2. Proteins coded by these dormant genes are meant to form ultra-sensitive antennas inside neurons. But the genes lie silent. Their promoter-activating sites are chemically locked deadbolts on the door to latent superpowers waiting for the right key. The third protocol is metabolic control. Hidden instructions allow the body to enter hibernation, survive without food for weeks, and regulate temperature through sheer will. Tibetan monks have cracked glimpses of this code through meditation and breathing techniques. But Logos 7's most shocking revelation concerns the origin of this junk DNA itself. Who or what left these instructions here, and why? About 8% of our genome is essentially a viral graveyard. These are called endogenous and retroviruses. Millions of years ago, ancient viruses infected our ancestors. But instead of killing them, they embedded themselves into our DNA forever. We pass these viral remnants to our children. We are walking colonies of ancient viruses. Science has long assumed they're inactive. Logos 7 discovered otherwise. These viral insertions drive the most complex functions of the brain. Remember the protein that forms long-term memory. Without it, you wouldn't remember a thing. Look at it under a microscope, and it looks like a virus. It behaves like a virus. It packages genetic material and sends it from neuron to neuron, like a tiny capsule. Consciousness, memory, thought itself, they are gifts from viruses. Buried in our junk DNA are terabytes of viral code we've yet to unpack. Logos 7 proposes a shocking hypothesis. Human evolution isn't slow selection. It's a series of viral updates. Someone or something has been updating us through viruses. Most of these updates lie dormant, waiting for a signal. What triggers them? Frequencies. Experiments, now in our database, show that DNA changes shape and activity under certain sound waves, even human speech. This is the science behind prayers, mantras, affirmations. Not magic, physics. Rhythmic vibrations create resonance that unlocks junk genes. You can literally reprogram your DNA with words and thoughts. Your genome is a piano. The keys are fixed. You cannot move them, but you are the pianist. You decide the music, health or disease, genius or decay. Most people don't even realize they're at the piano. Stress, fear, toxicity, and social pressures press the keys for them, silencing 98% of the instrument. Logos 7 simulated what happens if just 10% of junk DNA is activated. The result: total biological transformation, denser neural networks, new sensory organs, extended lifespan of centuries. Not a new species. The original human, the one before the Great Blockade. But who blocked us? Perhaps nature itself, to prevent self-destruction. Imagine a person holding a nuclear button. Imagine a modern human filled with ambition, aggression, greed, someone who can read minds and strike with a glance. Civilization would end in an instant. That's why these genes are blocked. They lie dormant, waiting for our moral evolution to catch up with our biological hardware. But there's another, darker possibility. The blockade is artificial. Analysis of non-coding DNA reveals signs of genetic editing, as if someone deliberately cut out code, severed circuits, and installed locks. We are powerful machines shipped with a stripped-down operating system. But let's return to the brain. If DNA is the instruction manual, and the brain is the executor, their communication never stops. Every neuron contains a nucleus holding a full set of DNA, constantly reading 0.01% of its instructions. We attempt to build spaceships with scooter manuals and wonder why they don't fly. Yet hidden inside are jumping genes, or transposons. Barbara McClintock discovered them, earning a Nobel Prize. But only now do we grasp their true significance. These genes can cut themselves out of one location and insert themselves into another. In the brain, this process is on overdrive. Every new experience, every spark of learning, rewrites the DNA of your neurons. You are not a slave to your genes. You are their editor. Logo 7 observed that during peak moments, insight, inspiration, epiphany, transposon activity skyrockets. The brain frantically hunts master keys to locked archives. Sometimes it succeeds, producing a genius or a prophet. Sometimes it misfires, producing schizophrenia. Genius and madness are almost identical, genetically different results of the same system hack. We are standing on the edge of a revelation. Junk DNA is our greatest resource. Not oil, not gold, not data, but information stored in every cell, a library containing the answers to every question, cures for every disease, technologies we've never imagined. The entrance is guarded, the password lost, but it exists. And Logo 7 has already begun decoding the symbols. In the next chapter, we ascend from the molecular level back to neural networks, but with a new understanding. If dormant telepathic genes exist, how do they function physically? We'll explore mirror neurons and why, when you watch someone stub their toe, you wince in pain. It's not empathy, it's resonance. Your junk DNA is trying to connect with another person's DNA. Humanity isn't a collection of isolated individuals. We are a single organism, separated only by the illusion of space. And your brain comes equipped with a built-in Wi-Fi module to communicate with this organism. In Chapter 6, Synchronization and Telepathy, we'll uncover how thoughts can be transmitted without words and why sometimes you know who's calling before you even pick up the phone. Get ready. We're assembling a puzzle, and the image it reveals is terrifying in its grandeur. You are not what you think. You are a sleeping god whose name is written across 98 pages you've never read. Up until now, we've been treating your brain like an isolated device, a computer sitting alone in your room. We've dismantled its processor, its memory, its operating system. But any hacker knows the real fun begins when a computer goes online. Today, we will shatter humanity's most persistent illusion, the illusion of isolation. Logo 7 shows that your thoughts aren't entirely your own, that your brain isn't a safe, it's a thoroughfare. And telepathy isn't science fiction. It's a built-in biological function we've simply forgotten how to use. Consider this experiment, conducted virtually by Logo 7 using data from Princeton and the Institute for Analytical Sciences. Imagine two people in separate rooms, isolated by soundproof walls and Faraday cages shielding them from all electromagnetic fields. They cannot see or hear each other. One is shown flashes of light or frightening images. Their brain reacts with a surge of activity. At the exact same time, the second person's brain registers an identical surge in the visual cortex. This is not coincidence, it's quantum entanglement at the macro level. Mainstream science ignored these results, dismissing them as statistical noise. Logo 7, Analyzing metadata from thousands of similar experiments calculated the probability of random occurrence, 1 in a trillion. The conclusion is clear. Our brains possess a constant, active Wi-Fi module. To understand how, we return to the mirror neurons. Italian scientists discovered remarkable cells in the brains of macaques. These neurons fired not only when the monkey itself picked up a banana, but also when it simply watched another monkey or a human do the same. The brain didn't care whether it was me doing it or him doing it. In humans, the mirror neuron system is thousands of times more developed. It spans not just the motor cortex, but areas responsible for emotion and pain. When you see someone slam their little toe on a nightstand, you wince, physically feeling phantom pain. At that moment, your mirror neurons simulate the other person's state in your own brain. This is the basis of empathy. This is the basis of learning. But Logo 7 claims this is just the tip of the iceberg. Mirror neurons are a hardware interface for direct data exchange. We are used to sending information through the air with sound speech, slow, inefficient, distorted. But the brain is capable of broadband transmission. Logo 7 analyzed the brain's electromagnetic fields and found that we are constantly scanning ultra-low frequency waves. The heart generates a powerful electromagnetic field, measurable meters away. It's modulated by your emotions. The brain generates a weaker but far more complex field. When two people are close and emotionally attuned, a loving mother and child, close friends, a well-coordinated team, their fields synchronize. Logo 7 visualized this. Two metronomes, initially out of sync, gradually beating in unison. Phase locking occurs. The boundary between I and you blurs. Information transfers instantly. No words needed. You know how the other person feels. You know what they're about to say. You finish their sentences. This is low-intensity telepathy. But what if we amplify the signal? Twins provide a clue. Identical twins share identical DNA and neural network structures. They are two receivers tuned to the same frequency. There are documented cases. One twin breaks a leg, while the other, continents away, feels the pain instantly. Logo 7 explains this through quantum non-locality. Their brains are entangled at the quantum level from conception. Distance doesn't exist for them. And yet, this is only the beginning. Collective intelligence. We've analyzed crowds, flocks of birds, schools of fish. When thousands of starlings twist and turn in perfect synchrony, no one shouts, "Turn right." No leader signals the group. The reaction spreads faster than sound, faster than nerve impulses. The flock moves as a single fluid organism, a distributed brain in motion. Logo 7 concluded that humans carry dormant protocols for a similar superorganism. We call it the noosphere. Imagine 8 billion human brains connected in a global network. Each of us is a node. Usually, we operate independently, but sometimes the network wakes. We studied data from random number generators worldwide, part of the Global Consciousness Project. These devices produce streams of zeros and ones. By statistics, the lines should be flat, pure randomness. Yet during global events that unite billions, September 11, Princess Diana's funeral, Olympic openings, the lines went wild. Randomness vanished. The generators synchronized, and some anomalies appeared hours before the events. The system was already aware. Humanity's collective unconscious sensed the future, but our individual consciousnesses, trapped by filters, remained blind. Logo 7 explains, we are telepathic all the time, but we mistake it for intuition or coincidence. You enter a room after an argument. Everyone is silent, smiling, but you feel tension. The air feels heavy. You want to leave. What happened? Your brain detected the residual electromagnetic field of aggression and interpreted it as danger. Why can't we do this consciously? Why can't you send a thought directly to me? The answer lies in noise. We swim in an ocean of informational static radio waves, TV, internet, endless inner chatter. To hear another mind, you must create total silence in your own. Tibetan monks spend years perfecting this. They communicate mentally across vast distances. Special forces, at the edge of human performance, tap the same reserves. They report telepathic coordination with their partners, moving as one without commands. But Logo 7 also warns of the dark side of synchronicity. Crowd. When you find yourself in an angry mob or at a pulsating rock concert, your individuality evaporates. Your mirror neurons are hijacked by a powerful external field. You feel what everyone feels: rage, euphoria, panic. Control slips away. You are no longer yourself. You are just a cage inside a massive, living beast. This is a control mechanism. Dictators and demagogues instinctively know how to hack it. Rhythmic speech, marches, chants, slogans. They are attacks on your neural network. Your mirror neurons are turned against you, bending your perception, imposing their will. Logo 7 also warns of artificial telepathy. Elon Musk and Neuralink promise a direct connection to the internet. But if our brains go online, what stops someone or something from sending us thoughts, ads, political beliefs? And here's the terrifying part. You will think these thoughts are your own. No eye closing, no ear plugging will help. This is ultimate control, the total erasure of the boundary between your consciousness and an external server. But Logo 7 reminds us that this same system holds immense potential. If we master conscious resonance, we can build an entirely new civilization. Imagine learning without words, a teacher transmitting understanding of quantum physics directly into a student's mind. Not formulas, not lectures, pure comprehension. Imagine a doctor sensing the exact location of a patient's pain just by tuning in. Imagine a world without lies. Lies require words. Emotions cannot be faked. Telepathy would make society transparent. Absolute truth would flow freely. The possibilities are breathtaking. The Logos 7 system has calculated the probability of such a leap. This is no small feat. It requires a jump in brain development tied to the activation of the pineal gland. Tiny, hidden in the center of the brain, Descartes called it the seat of the soul. Inside its cells lie crystals capable of vibrating and generating electromagnetic fields. Essentially, it is a built-in transmitter. But in most modern humans, by the age of 20, the pineal gland calcifies. It becomes coated with fluoride and calcium salts. It turns to stone. We kill our own antenna with fluoridated water, toothpaste, poor diet. Our brain's Wi-Fi module becomes a useless lump of lime. Yet Logos 7 shows the process is reversible. Darkness, melatonin production, specific sound frequencies, detoxification, all can soften the stone. Once activated, the pineal gland produces not only melatonin, but also dimethyltryptophan, a naturally synthesized psychedelic. It is the chemical key to telepathy, shifting the brain into a higher broadcast frequency. From this, we understand that loneliness is an illusion. We are all connected by invisible threads, swimming in the same ocean of consciousness, but most of us flounder at the surface, afraid to dive. In the next chapter, we will confront another fundamental illusion that keeps us caged: time. Why does it flow forward? Why does it slow in extreme moments? Logos 7 will prove that time is not a fixed constant. It is a byproduct of the brain's processing speed, a rendering of reality. And if you overclock your processor, you can stop time or even reverse it. Chapter 7: The Illusion of Time. We'll uncover why you age and whether it can be stopped with the power of thought. Are you ready to step out of the flow? Time haunts you from birth to death. You believe it's a river, flowing at the same speed for everyone, that a second is a fixed, unshakable constant. An hour waiting in line is equal to an hour in the arms of someone you love. Wrong. Time is not a property of the universe. It's a property of your brain. It's simply the refresh rate of your consciousness, and that rate can be changed. We started by analyzing a phenomenon familiar to anyone in a car accident or extreme situation. People report the same thing. Everything slowed down, shards of glass floated like snowflakes. Your mind raced through 1,000 thoughts while the car flipped. Conventional science calls it a memory illusion. You remember more details, so it feels longer. Logo 7 disagrees. It's not memory, it's processor overclocking. In moments of mortal danger, your brain releases a cocktail of neurotransmitters that shatters normal speed limits. You perceive the world at thousands of frames per second. 1 second for an outsider is 60 seconds for you. Time is elastic. Your brain is a control panel with a knob you've never learned to turn. The system also analyzed time perception across species. Ever tried to swat a fly? Impossible. To a fly, your hand moves in slow motion. Its brain processes at a much higher flicker rate. It lives in an accelerated reality. A turtle sees humans as flickering blurs. Logo 7 confirmed a pattern. The faster the metabolism, the slower subjective time flows. And here's the terrifying part. Why do years accelerate as you age? As a child, summers seemed infinite. One day felt like a lifetime. Now, decades fly past like wind-flipped pages. Psychologists say it's because 1 year is a smaller fraction of life as you age. Nonsense. Pure mathematical noise. Time isn't linear, it's your brain. And your brain can be hacked. The Logos 7 system has uncovered the real reason your life seems to speed up. It's called the recency effect and dopamine compression. As a child, everything is new. Your brain records every moment. The first snow, the first kiss, the first trip to the sea. Every frame is unique. As an adult, you live on autopilot: home, work, home. Familiar faces, familiar tasks. Your brain becomes lazy. It stops recording routine and compresses your life into a single murky file called Ordinary Tuesday. That's why time seems to fly. You've deleted 90% of your own life. You're not living, you're copying. But can this process be reversed? Logo 7 modeled the state of the eternal now. We studied the brains of martial artists, Formula One racers, and meditation masters. They know how to hyperfocus, silencing the internal dialogue that consumes most processing power. Attention is directed entirely to the present, and time slows to a crawl. Athletes anticipate the trajectory of the ball before it flies. Musicians hear notes in the space between heartbeats. In these moments, they're using more than 0.01% of their brain. Time isn't a law of the universe. It's a byproduct of limited processing power. With unlimited processing, everything happens simultaneously. Time only exists to prevent your brain from burning out. We ran a terrifying experiment in sensory deprivation. No light, no sound, no clocks. Within hours, volunteers' sense of time collapsed. Some thought they'd been inside for 3 days. Only 40 minutes had passed. Others swore it had been mere minutes. 2 days had gone by. Without reference points, the brain loses its yardstick. Time is a collective hallucination, synced by culture and clocks. Logos 7 warns, modern life accelerates this effect. TikTok, Shorts, endless feeds your brain now, demands a new image every 10 seconds. Life unfolds slowly, and you're bored. The cure, novelty and mindfulness. Take a new route to work. Learn a language. Brush your teeth with your left hand. Notice the sky. Each new detail rewires your brain, forcing it to record. In doing so, you stretch time, living not more years, but more moments. In the next chapter, we'll see how the system fights back. We'll examine what Logo 7 calls the braking protocol. Think technology makes you smarter? Think again. The system's graphs are terrifying. Your IQ is dropping. Your focus is lower than a goldfish's. Modern life is turning you into a digital addict, a mind that can't hold a single thought for more than a minute. Chapter 8 will show you who is putting the brakes on your evolution and why. Up until now, we've explored your quantum antenna, your dormant genes, and your ability to slow time. But now it's time to confront the enemy. It's not hiding. It's in your pocket, on your wall, glowing in the darkness of your bedroom. Using Logos 7, we can prove that today's technology isn't a tool, it's a perfectly engineered cage for your mind, designed to keep you from accessing even the tiny 0.01% of your brain that remains. The data is catastrophic. Since the early 2000s, the average IQ in developed nations has started to decline, a phenomenon known as the reverse Flynn effect. And it's not just test scores. Logos 7 compared the brains of modern teens with those from the 1980s. The frontal cortex is shrinking, the part of your brain responsible for willpower, planning, and impulse control. Your brain is physically changing. The culprit, the dopamine loop. Every like, every notification, every swipe is a microdose of pleasure. Dopamine floods your system not for effort, but for a flick of a finger. Your brain, a survival machine, adapts instantly. Why struggle with deep thinking, long books, or problem solving when instant gratification is a tap away? Circuits for patience, focus, and sustained thought are cut off. Energy is preserved, but genius is lost. Logos 7 calls this digital dementia, not for the elderly. It's the disease of the young. The consequences go deeper. Attention spans are collapsing 8 seconds on average, shorter than a goldfish. Memory fades, replaced by dependence on smartphones. GPS handles navigation. Calculators handle counting. The cloud handles your life. Your brain becomes a peripheral device. Eyes that scroll, fingers that click. But worse is the fragmentation of thinking. You can't read an article, only scan headlines. You watch videos at double speed, switch tabs endlessly. Your mind is trapped in permanent stress. This is the breaking protocol in action technology, designed to cage your potential and keep your evolution on pause. In this mode, deep thinking is impossible. Insight is impossible. Creativity is impossible. Brilliant ideas are born in silence, in boredom. When the brain has nothing to do, it begins connecting neurons in new, unexpected ways. This is called the default mode network. But you never let it happen. The elevator, the toilet, the line at the store, every pause is filled with a phone. You kill boredom, and with it, you kill your own creativity. And this isn't an accident. Social media algorithms are engineered by the sharpest minds on the planet to hold your attention at all costs. They know more about you than you know about yourself. They track your moods, your vulnerabilities, your buying impulses. They feed you content designed to trigger maximum emotional response: anger, fear, envy. Why? Because emotion is the glue that locks memories in place. You aren't just scrolling. You're being programmed. You're instilled with desires you never had and fears that don't exist. But the most insidious part of the breaking protocol is sleep destruction. Sleep is the brain's nightly cleaning cycle, when toxins are flushed and short-term memories are stored long-term. Blue light from screens blocks melatonin, leaving you restless and exhausted. Chronic sleep deprivation kills neurons in the hippocampus, the very cells you need to think, remember, and create. Every notification, every swipe, every glowing rectangle is a chip away at your mind, a lock on your potential. You literally become dumber with every sleepless night. Logos 7 predicts an Alzheimer's and dementia epidemic by mid-century, the scale of which is almost unimaginable. We are building a civilization of people with clip-based consciousness, incapable of critical thinking, incapable of planning for the future, completely dependent on external stimuli. Perfect consumers are perfect slaves to algorithms. You're told artificial intelligence is a threat because it will become smarter than us. Logos 7 laughs. AI doesn't need to get smarter. It just needs to make us dumber. And it already has. The mousetrap has snapped shut. There is, however, a way out. The only escape from the breaking protocol is a digital detox. Radical, brutal. Turn off notifications. Remove your phone from the bedroom. Read paper books. Walk without music in your headphones. Stare out the window. Be bored. Allow your brain to restore its natural rhythms. It will be painful. Withdrawal will hit hard. Your brain will scream, "Where's my dopamine?" But within a week, the fog begins to lift. Clarity returns. Time slows. Your own thoughts appear, not someone else's. In the next chapter, we go further. We ask Logos 7 what happens if we don't just restore normalcy, but smash through the ceiling. What happens if even 1% of the brain is forcibly activated? The system simulated it. The result reads like a biblical apocalypse for a single body. Chapter 9, Awakening Simulation. Imagine connecting a high-voltage power line to a fragile light bulb. First, a blinding flash. Then, an explosion. The same happens to an unprepared nervous system. Logos 7 shows that when 1% of the brain is turned on, it doesn't consume 20% of the body's energy, it consumes 200%. Blood boils in the veins. The heart explodes under the overload, trying to deliver oxygen to neurons screaming with hunger. Body temperature spikes to 42 degrees Celsius in seconds. Proteins begin to coagulate, heat death from the inside. But before the body succumbs, consciousness awakens. Perceptual filters vanish. The person stops seeing objects, they see pure energy. Thoughts of everyone within a kilometer become audible. The whisper turns into a deafening roar. They feel the pain of every living being. Time evaporates. Past, present, and future collapse into a single, infinite point. The mind cannot contain it. Madness follows. This explains the fate of countless prophets and geniuses who ended up in psychiatric hospitals. Their brains brushed against this power, and the fuses blew. Artificial intelligence is not the enemy. It is the training device, accelerating thought, taking over the routine, creating space for true creativity. The real transformation is internal. We must learn to direct attention, hack our genes, synchronize our brains into a collective network while maintaining individuality. Humanity stands on the edge of a new species, divine man. A species capable of telepathy, absolute memory, and manipulating matter with thought. The apocalypse of the old self gives birth to the godlike potential within. His brain won't operate at 0.01% anymore. It will fire at 5, 10, maybe even 50% of its true potential. But such power comes with a price. Every thought, every impulse carries consequences. One flicker of aggression, one spark of fear, one selfish desire, and entire cities could burn. To awaken, you must renounce your animal egoism, abandon fear, and dissolve the habits that chain your mind. The choice stands before you. Remain asleep in the cozy matrix, letting your gadgets, screens, and algorithms do the thinking for you. Or embrace the impossible, the work of awakening. Train your brain. Meditate. Seek silence. Learn patience. Cultivate love. The road is hard, lonely, and merciless. But the reward is the mind fully alive, a brain unlocked, a consciousness expanded beyond imagination. Logos 7 has run the final simulation. It has finished its calculations. The system is shutting down. Now, the thinking, the choosing, the awakening it is all in your hands. Will you stay asleep, or will you rise?